afternoon, everyone. My name is Rossany Rios, and I am the Strategic Manager for the Office of Workforce Development. And today I am going to be talking about TABE. We're going to go over a general overview of TABE. Also, we will discuss the transition to TABE 11 and 12 and the administration of TABE online. A lot has changed with TABE recently or in the recent years, and we wanted the chance to discuss these changes and also to provide you with tools. And with that, let us begin. The test for adult education, commonly known as the TABE test, is a diagnostic tool used for several reasons. Many companies use it in hiring, promotions, or for selecting employees for training programs for skilled positions. The TABE is also used by public service agencies who are guiding people into adult education programs, such as a high school equivalency or going to trade school. In this instance, the public service agency uses TABE as a tool to assess adults for placement in education and training programs. And that's how the Office of Adult Education uses TABE. Now, let's talk about how we use TABE. For WIOA Title I programs, TABE is mainly used to determine if an adult or youth is unable to compute or solve problems, read or speak English at a level necessary to function on the job, in the individual's family, or in society. In other words, we use TABE to determine if an individual is basic skills deficient. An individual is considered basic skills deficient if the person is reading or writing English or computing or solving problems at or below an 8.9 grade level. This score is determined after the administration of a TABE test. Although we have other approved tests like the BEST and CASAS, TABE is the most commonly used. TABE can also be used to assess measurable skills gain. By doing that, you administrate a pre-test before the individual actually receives services. And then once the individual has received all the necessary services and has gained all the knowledge that that individual needs to gain, then you do a post-test and then you measure the skills that that individual has gained. Although I have heard that utilizing TABE 11 and 12 to do measurable skill gain is a little bit more complicated than previously with TABE 9 and 10. Now, let's talk about the TABE structure. TABE is a standardized test of reading, math, and language. TABE can be administered either individually or in a group setting in accordance with approved testing guidelines. TABE has two forms, TABE 11 and TABE 12, and have 5 levels, L, E, M, D, and A, listed in ascending order by content level from more basic to more comprehensive. TABE 11 and 12 does not require time. Instead, there is allowable time. According to the Data Recognition Corporation, DRC, the average test taker typically takes or utilizes less time than the allowable time in each level and section. And as you can see in this slide, we have this table provided by the DRC that kind of talks about the minutes allowed per part and the average time that it takes a test taker to complete that or those sections. For example, you have reading parts 1 and 2, and the allowable time is 100 minutes, and they are saying that the typical test taker takes about 75 minutes to complete these 2 parts. The same thing with language. The allowable time is 55 minutes, and then the typical person takes about 30 to 40 minutes. The same thing with math. Part 1 and 2, you have a maximum allowable time of 65 minutes, and they are saying that a typical individual takes about 40 to 45 minutes to finish those 2 parts. And that's kind of like a basic overview of tape 11 and 12. And I mentioned earlier that the measurable skills gain is harder to do on tape 11 and 12, but we hope that the tools that we're going to provide you at the end of this training will give you the training and will give you the guidance that you need, that DRC offers in their website to overcome some of these challenges with tape 11 and 12. Now we are going to talk about why we have transitioned to tape 11 and 12. We have mentioned some of the challenges already, but let's just understand why we transitioned to 11 and 12. Tape 11 and 12 has proven to be more difficult than tape 9 and 10. It takes longer for the test taker to complete the test. The questions are a little bit more complicated or complex, which brings new challenges for the staff facilitating the test and the individuals taking the test. Let's talk about why, or let's explain why we transitioned to tape 11 and 12. The National Reporting System for Adult Education, NRS, has created new standards to assess educational functioning levels. The tape 11 and 12 addresses these new standards by adding content or questions to their test in order to assess the test takers' abilities in these expanded areas. The standards changed, therefore the test had to change and adapt to the new standards. That's why it's different. I have extracted this example that you see on the screen from one of the DRC training webinars. As you can see, the old math requirement was one sentence long. Individual has little or no recognition of numbers or simple counting skills, or might have only minimal skills such as the ability to add or subtract single-digit numbers. That was it. That was the standard. Now, look at the new standard. All of the words you see in red in the bottom section of this slide are new areas. From one sentence previously, now the standard is like 5 paragraphs long. Of course, they have to incorporate new questions to assess the students' functioning levels based on these new standards. Therefore, there's more questions and they are more comprehensive. I don't think that we can go around the new standards or go around the time that takes to complete the test, or maybe the complexity of it. But I believe that if we are mindful and if we incorporate small changes, we can make the experience better for the individuals that are administering the test, and also better for the individual taking the test. And that's my way to transition to the next area, which is some of the strategies that we have found so far that will alleviate some of the heaviness of tape 11 and 12. So the first strategy with tape 11 and 12 is to have a clear understanding of why the participant is requesting WIOA Title I services. And this might sound silly, but really understanding the why is very important. Make sure you choose the assessment according to the participant's needs and requested services. For example, if the participant's plan of services includes enrolling into TCSG adult education services, or includes an individual training account to a formal training, TABE is required. However, if the participant is an adult needing or requesting services that don't require TABE, for example, OJTs, work experience, and a number of other services that we have that don't necessarily require TABE, do not request assessment or do not request the TABE as a standard assessment or as a standard procedure. Instead, utilize other assessments that can provide you with the information you need with more flexibility. You still need to gather the information that you need to gather and you need to have. But if the service does not require tape and you have other instruments or other ways of gathering this information, then use those other ways whenever it's appropriate. This will be less stressful for the facilitators and the participants. Strategy number 2. Due to longer testing times for TABE 11 and 12, it might be more appropriate to test in only 1 or 2 subject areas rather than all 3 at one time. This will prevent the participants from experiencing test fatigue. We all know test fatigue can negatively impact the individual's performance. So keep that in mind as an option. Third strategy. Depending upon the individual's unique need, offer accommodations. There are accommodations that require prior approval and a documented disability. However, there are accommodations that don't require prior approval or disability-related documentation. They're available for everyone. It is important to understand the accommodations available and the difference among them. Michelle Mason will be addressing this area later on. And with those 3 strategies discussed, we now are going to move to virtual TABE testing. To conduct TABE 11 and 12 online, the local workforce development areas are encouraged to do the following. First, train before administering the test. Complete the remote testing training before administering the assessment. 2, ensure a web-based testing platform is available to all test administrators and provide each test administrator with training on the basics of using the web-based platform. Also, train the participants on the basics of the web-based platform if needed. We don't want for the online TABE experience to be a challenging one because the administrators are not familiar with the web-based training platform, or because the participants don't know how to use WebEx or whatever web-based training platform we're using. So be mindful that both the administrators and the participants, they know how to navigate the web-based platform. We have all been there. We're living the COVID environment and we have to learn how to maneuver these platforms, and at times they are challenging. So keep that in mind when you are implementing or when you are working on your program for virtual TABE test. The next one, use experienced test administrators as much as possible. Also, verify the identity of the participants before testing. And lastly, adhere to all instructions and guidance for remote testing provided by DRC. As you can see in the slide, we have a link to a PDF guidance that was created to administrate remote or to do remote proctoring for TABE. And this resource will be available for you as well. And talking about resources, we have added some resources to this training, and I'm just going to go over some of these. First, you will find a link to a series of webinars DRC created to help administrators implement and facilitate online TABE. In these webinars, you will find information for all sorts of TABE related content and questions. You can find information about the scoring process of TABE, and there's a number of webinars in this link that you can get familiar and more knowledgeable on TABE by using it. The second is a link to the DRC remote proctoring guidance, the PDF document, so you can have that to help you develop your proctoring processes and procedures. And also, lastly, we have added a checklist for TABE 11 and 12 implementation. This checklist was created by the Office of Adult Education, and they graciously has shared this checklist with us and some of these resources as well. So you can have an overall idea of all the things that you need to have in place to have a successful implementation of TABE 11 and 12. And with these resources and all this information, I have concluded my section for today, and I thank you for your time.